Greetings and welcome back. We are now on to our fourth passage of test number 1. Congratulations on finishing the first 3 passages. You have come a long way and you're continuing to get better. I think at this point in time, you are pretty familiar with the game plan. We are going to read the excerpt. We're going to skim and annotate. We're going to chunk this passage, and you can see this passage is 84 lines long. So we're going to read about 2/3 to 3/4 of it, and then answer all the questions that we can before reading the rest of it and continuing on. And last but not least, we will be applying the fourth strategy, which is to come up with our own answer before looking at those choices and trying to match our answer with what is in those choices. So once again, you may click on the little blue icon that's hovering on your screen right now if you need a quick reminder on those 4 reading strategies. And one last thing is there's going to be other little pop-ups on this screen, and I really want to encourage you from this point onward to always try answering the question on your own when we get to the questions part. I'll give you a reminder of that closer to that. But without further ado, let's delve right into this. So the excerpt. This passage is adapted from Virginia Woolf, 3 Guineas, published in 1938 by That Company, We Don't Care. Here, Woolf considers the situation of women in English society. So this is more than likely going to be part of the women's suffrage speech. Let's begin. Close at hand is a bridge over River Thames, an admirable vantage ground for us to make a survey. The river flows beneath, barges pass, laden with timber, bursting with corn. There on one side are the domes and spires of the city, on the other Westminster and the House of Parliament. It is a place to stand on by the hour, dreaming. But not now. Now we are pressed for time. Now we are here to consider facts. Now we must fix our eyes upon the procession of the sons of educated men. As far as annotating is concerned, it sounds like this story is taking place in London. You can tell because it mentions River Thames, Westminster, and House of Parliament, and just knowing that those structures and those things are found in London is advantageous. You don't really have to know it. Remember, with these passages, you really never need outside knowledge. If you have it, that's great. You just have an added advantage, but you never have to have any outside knowledge. Any answer you need is coming directly from this passage. Therefore, we know that they are standing somewhere watching something that is going on. So this is pretty descriptive of the things that they're seeing all around them. But what caught my attention is down here. It says, now we are pressed for time. Now we are here to consider facts. Now we must fix our eyes upon the procession. So it looks like they're watching something or someone, a procession, which means people walking in maybe a single file line or just people walking together towards something. Not only are they watching, but there seems to be an urgency, like there's a call to do something, a call to action, I guess we can call it. So let's go on to read the next paragraph. But as you can see, the next paragraph is super long. It starts from line 12 and doesn't end until, well, actually it never ends. So we'll just take breaks as needed. So let's go on. There they go, our brothers who have been educated at public schools and universities, mounting those steps, passing in and out of those doors, ascending those pulpits, teaching, preaching, administering justice, practicing medicine, transacting business, making money. It is a solemn sight always, a procession, like a caravansary crossing a desert. But now, for the past 20 years or so, it is no longer a sight merely, a photograph or fresco scrolled upon walls of time, at which we can look with merely an aesthetic appreciation. For there, trapezing along at the tail end of the procession, we go ourselves, and that makes a difference. So maybe we can pause here and see what we can annotate from those few lines that we've read. So they're still watching, and it sounds like they're watching a group of men walking, and those men have held positions of leadership, preaching, teaching, administering justice, practicing medicine, transacting business. They've been doing all the main things that are done in a city. But then here it says, it is a solemn sight always, a procession like a caravansary, crossing a desert. But now, see, the word but now is indicating a change. So here you want to let your eyes and let your mind pause here and ask yourself, what is getting ready to change? It says, for the past 20 years or so, it is no longer a sight, merely a photograph or fresco scrawled upon the walls of time, at which we can look with merely an aesthetic appreciation. For there, trapezing along at the tail end of this procession, we go ourselves. So it sounds like whomever is watching no longer has to watch from afar. They are now part of the procession. So here this but now is indicating a change, and the change here is we go ourselves. So I guess we can say join. We who have looked for so long at the pageant in books or from a curtain window, watched educated men leaving the house at about 9:30 to go to an office, returning to the house at about 6:30 from an office, need look passively no longer. We too can leave the house, can mount those steps, pass in and out of those doors, make money, administer justice. We who now agitate these humble pens may in another century or two speak from the pulpit. So yeah, it sounds like the women really are joining the movement. They're doing what men have done. So I kind of want to say here, women are doing what the men have been doing. And he goes on to say, nobody will dare contradict us, then we shall be the mouthpieces of the divine spirit. A solemn thought, is it not? Who can say whether as time goes on we may not dress in military uniform, with gold lace on our breasts, swords at our sides, and something like the old family coal scuttle on our heads, save that venerable object was never decorated with plumes of white horsehair. So here, it sounds like they have hope for more change and more equality to come. So we can actually say that here there's hope for more change to come. They're thinking that women will actually be able to join the military at some point. There's also a little bit of humor because it mentions having a military uniform with a gold lace on our breasts, swords at our sides, and something like the old family coal. But this test doesn't really focus on like literally styles like humor as such, so we'll just keep going. Now, you laugh. Indeed, the shadow of the private house still makes those dresses look a little queer. We have worn private clothes so long, but we have not come here to laugh or to talk of fashions, men's and women's. We are here on the bridge to ask ourselves certain questions, and they are very important questions. So here, again, we're going to pause because we are learning if the passage is indicating that something is important, you want to pay attention to that. So here we are also getting to the crux of the matter as to why they're there. We are here on the bridge to ask ourselves certain questions. So they're here to ask questions. So we can annotate this with question marks. And it goes on to say that, and they are very important questions, and we have very little time in which to answer them. So to ask, and you know what? This is something that's seemingly recurring at this point. We have very little time. Do you remember at the beginning of this, when we were annotating, we saw a call to action. There's a little bit of urgency here, and we know this because it's saying now we are pressed for time. That's urgency. Now we are here to consider facts. Now we must fix our eyes upon the procession. So we are seeing a little bit of urgency, and it's repeated here again. Anytime you see something being repeated on the passage twice or more, you definitely want to pay attention to that. So it's saying that we have very little time, so we can say press for time right here. I'm going to just draw a little clock. And then it goes on to say the questions that we have to ask and to answer about the procession during this moment of transition are so important that they may well change the lives of all men and women forever. For we have to ask ourselves, here and now, there it is again, the urgency. Do we wish to join that procession or don't we? On what terms shall we join that procession? Above all, where is it leading us, the procession of educated men? The moment is short. It may last 5 years, 10 years, or perhaps only a matter of a few months longer. But you will object. So I think this is a good stopping point for chunking because it sounds, see this but right here is indicating another change. It looks like there's going to be a change in direction. So it might be a good place to pause and just answer all the questions we can using what we've read already. And these right here are the questions that were being referred to. So we'll just draw an arrow to point to those questions. Now we are ready to try questions. So please do try these questions on your own. As we read the question, there's going to be a little bubble popping up on your screen, giving you the opportunity to try this on your own. So just do it. Perfect. Question number 32. All right, let's go ahead and read it. The main purpose of the passage is to... Now, this question is a purpose question. It is a main point, big picture question. Well, because we haven't read the whole passage, we cannot answer this yet. Let's just skip it and we'll come back to it. Question 33. The central claim of the passage is that, again, here's another big picture question asking about the passage. We haven't read the whole passage. We're going to skip this. 34. Woolf uses the word we throughout the passage mainly to do what? Please try to answer this question on your own. We can try to use the my answer strategy on it. The Woolf uses the word we throughout the passage mainly to do what? While we were reading this passage, you might have noticed that someone is seemingly trying to convince people to do something. And the assumption here is, because we read the excerpt, is there's a women's suffrage proponent or supporter of the women's suffrage that is trying to convince other women to do something about their current condition. So if you're trying to convince someone, if you're trying to give a persuasive speech or writing a persuasive essay, you use the word we to connect with the people. You use we to encourage people to join your cause or to convince people to do something. So based on that, we're looking for one of the answers to say something about convincing people or showing camaraderie. That's what we're looking for. Now, go through the choices. A says, reflect the growing friendliness among a group of people. Well, that could be true. I don't think it serves a great purpose in this passage. Friendliness is not really important. And let's do B. Advance the need for candor among a group of people. While that may be true, I don't think there was anything about lies or insincerity in this, so there's no need for candor. We can get rid of that one. C is saying establish a sense of solidarity among a group of people. That's what we were saying, camaraderie. Encourage people, convince them. So that sounds like it might be it. Let's try D. Reinforce the need for respect among a group of people. Yes, so in this passage, in context, because you're trying to convince people to do something, you want to create solidarity. So C would make the best choice here. Let's go to question 35. According to the passage, Woolf chooses the setting of the bridge because it... All right, so that was at the beginning of the passage as we saw it. Close at hand is a bridge over River Thames, an admirable vantage ground for us to make a survey. So yeah, so it actually says it right there. It's an admirable vantage ground for us to make a survey. So they chose the bridge because it has a good viewpoint. All right, so let's see if any choices agree with that. Is conducive to a mood for fanciful reflection. That doesn't say anything about a good view, so no. Provides a good view. Oh wow, look at that. Literally the word we just talked about. Provides a good view of the procession of the sons of educated men. So B sounds like it's it. That was our answer when we tried the my answer strategy. But let's look at the others. Let's keep B open and let's keep looking at C and D. Is within sight of historic episodes to which she alludes. Well, I don't think the historical episodes make sense. Neither D is symbolic of the legacy of past and present sons of educated men. Well, that sounds clever. It is not in the passage, right? Remember, what we are seeing over and over again. If it is not in the passage, like literally said in the passage, it is not the answer. Because the passage said, vantage ground for us to make a survey, that is right in line with having a good view. So B would have to be it and not D. Let's go to question 36. And this question 36 appears to be connected to question 37. It's the little detail and the evidence of it. So let's start with 36 first. So let's read it. Woolf indicates that the procession she describes in the passage has come to have more practical influence in recent years, has become a celebrated feature of English public life, includes all the richest and most powerful men in England, has become less exclusionary in its membership in recent years. So this question here is saying Woolf indicates, that means it's stated, that the procession she describes in this passage, so A, let's read these choices again, has come to have more practical influence in recent years. Don't think she mentioned anything about them having more practical influence in recent years. They've always had it, so I don't think recent years makes sense. So I don't think A is it. Actually, I think we annotated something here. Did we not say but now is indicating a change? In fact, let's actually go back to that section right there. It said, but now for the past 20 years or so, it is no longer a sight merely, a photograph or a fresco scrawled upon the walls of time, at which we can look with merely an aesthetic appreciation. For there, trapezing along the tail end of the procession, we go ourselves, and that makes a difference. So it appears as though this is a fairly recent thing that is taking place, because for a long time they've always had to watch from afar, but recently they have been able to join the procession, and I think that was a choice. Wasn't that D? Has become less exclusionary in its membership in recent years. That was it. And let's try question 37. So right around lines 23, like 19-ish, in this box right here, which is like 23 to 24. Yes, and that's a choice. That's choice C. So that goes to prove that we got this question right. So yeah, 36 and 37 are done. Let's move on to question 38. And again, this is a double question where you have a detailed question along with a proof for it. So let's try it. Wolf characterizes the questions in line 53 through 57 for we as both what? So let's go to those lines 53 through 57. Thankfully, we actually annotated this. Let's see, 53 starts right here in this region up until there. So I think we can start reading from right this section. For we have to ask ourselves here now, do we wish to join that procession or don't we? On what terms shall we join that procession? Above all, where is it leading us? The procession of educated men. The moment is short. It may last 5 years, and then he goes on. So Wolf characterizes the questions in those lines as both controversial and threatening, weighty and unanswerable, momentous and pressing, provocative and mysterious. So if you remember, we kept saying that we drew a little clock right here, right? And the moment I saw momentous and pressing, my brain immediately remembered how urgent this was and how pressing this was. She sounds really eager to get people to do something now. So I'm going to say C is it. It's about momentous and pressing. And again, this is proof of how effective annotating can be. You just have to be careful and learn what it is that these tests ask over and over again. The key items, the key things. We knew to annotate this clock because a recurring theme in this passage is now, now, now. Press for time. We can't wait. It's very urgent. So yes, if you see something that's being mentioned over and over again, you do want to annotate that and track it throughout the whole passage. So of course the next question is, where do we find evidence for that? Let's see. Which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? So where did we find evidence that they were being pressed for time? All right, we can look through the choices to help us out. So lines 46 through 47 starts right here. We are here on the bridge to ask ourselves these questions. Well, I don't think really that's it. Let's go to B. Lines 48 through 49. Here we go. And they're very important questions and we have very little time in which to answer them. Actually, that's it. I don't know what I was highlighting earlier, but that's it. Line 48 through 49. That shows urgency right in that sentence. So we don't have to look further. So B is it. This is question 40. Which choice most closely captures the meaning of the figurative sixpence referred to in lines 70 to 71? Okay, and now we see the questions that we haven't read yet. We haven't gotten this far, so it is time for us to go back to this passage. Let's do that. All right, so we stopped right here. We'll pick it up from but you will object. But you will object. You have no time to think. You have your battles to fight, your rent to pay, your bazaars to organize. That excuse shall not serve you, madam. As you know from your own experience, there are facts that prove it. The daughters of educated men have always done their thinking from hand to mouth, not under green lamps at study tables in the cloisters of secluded colleges. They have thought while they stirred the pot, while they rocked the cradle. It is thus that they won us the right to our brand new sixpence. That's the word we saw in the passage. It was thus that they won us the right to our brand new sixpence. It falls to us now to go on thinking. How are we to spend that sixpence? Think we must. Let us think in offices, in omnibuses, while we are standing in the crowd watching coronations and Lord Mayor's shows. Let us think in the gallery of the House of Commons, in the law courts. Let us think at baptisms and marriages and funerals. Let us never cease from thinking, what is this civilization in which we find ourselves? What are these ceremonies, and why should we take part in them? What are these professions, and why should we make money out of them? Where, in short, is it leading us? The procession of the sons of educated men. So that's the remainder of this passage, and some of the things that stood out. The daughters of men, of educated men, have always done their thinking from hand to mouth, not under green lamps at study tables. So that means that they've had to, what comes to mind is multitasking. So they have, what it sounds like is that they haven't had the privilege like their male counterparts have. The males can just go to work and come back home and not have to worry about this, but women have had to worry about the work that they do outside of the home and still worry about doing the home duties, which at the time were, raising babies. We can tell this by it says while they rock the cradle, cooking while they start the pot, and this whomever the author is, whomever this person is who is speaking, is encouraging them to think while they do these things, and goes on to say, in fact, the reason why they've earned this new sixpence. A sixpence sounds like it's a form of payment or compensation for doing something. So yes, and it sounds to me, based on this passage, that the sixpence she's referring to is the right they have earned to join the procession. Nevertheless, that stood out to me. And then what also stood out to me is the repeated encouragement to think. She's emphasizing to think. Think about how in this new world that we are about to delve into, now that we are being allowed to join the procession of men, what do these jobs mean? What are these jobs? How are they going to make money from them? And so on and so forth. So I feel like we're ready to just go back and try to answer these questions. And don't forget, we skipped the first two, because we hadn't read the whole passage. We have to go back to those two. So, question 40, which choice most closely captures the meaning of the figurative sixpence referred to in line 70 to 71? And we highlighted it here already. Is it tolerance, knowledge, opportunity, or perspective? I literally just said, I think the sixpence is the right they've just recently earned to join this procession. It's like a reward for, accomplishing something. So the only thing that shows that here is C, opportunity. So that brings us to the next question, question 41. The range of places and occasions listed in line 72 to 76 mainly serves to emphasize how, what? So let's see. Line 72 to 76. Let us think in offices, in omnibuses while we stand in the crowd, watching coronations and Lord Mayor's shows. Let us think in the gallery of the House of Commons, in the law courts. Let us think at baptisms, at marriages and funerals. Let us never cease from thinking. This is an encouragement to think. So thankfully, we had already annotated it and talked about it some. All we need to do is go over these choices and see which one makes the most sense. Mainly serve to emphasize how novel the challenge faced by women is, pervasive the need for critical reflection, complex the political and social issues of the day are, enjoyable the career possibilities for women are. I think B makes the most sense. Pervasive the need for critical reflection. Think everywhere. So yes, so B makes sense in this context. Great. And now we go back to questions 32 and 33, which we skipped because we hadn't read the whole passage yet. Here's 32. The main purpose of the passage is to emphasize the value of a tradition, stress the urgency of an issue, highlight the severity of social divisions, question the feasibility of an undertaking. Yes, so there's only one thing that we know that was spoken over and over and over again, and that's how urgent this matter is. And that has to be B. All right, question 33. The central claim of the passage is that educated women face a decision about how to engage with existing institutions. Is that the central claim of this passage? Was it about how educated women face a decision about how to engage with existing institutions? Yeah, I like that one, but we can't really make a decision to look at all the other ones. Let's just keep going. Women can have positions of influence in English society only if they give up some of their traditional roles. That was never said in this passage. The male monopoly of power in English society has had grave and continuing effects. True as that may be, it was not the central claim of this passage. The entry of educated women into positions of power traditionally held by men will transform those positions. Ooh, that sounds pretty interesting. Now, was this the central claim of this passage, that when women enter these previously male-dominated fields, that those fields and those positions will be changed, will be transformed? That was never the central claim. The claim for this passage, the central claim is A, educated women face a decision about how to engage with existing institutions. And that's what this speaker, this author, is trying to convince them. And we can find a lot of evidence for that. So some of the places where that was spoken is the questions that we have to ask ourselves and answer about this procession during this moment of transition are so important that they may well change the lives of all men and women forever. But we have to ask ourselves here and now, do we wish to join that procession or don't we? On what terms shall we join that procession? Above all, where is it leading us, the procession of educated men? The moment is short. It may last 5, 10, or perhaps a matter of a few months, but you will object. And then it goes on and on and on and on. And then it goes on here to say, what is this civilization in which we find ourselves? What are these ceremonies, and why should we take part in them? What are these professions, and why should we make money out of them? Where, in short, is it leading us, the procession of the sons of educated men? So A is the one that talks about women facing a decision about how to engage with existing institutions. And that concludes this passage. Great job. If you've answered these questions on your own, which I hope that you did, congratulations on all the ones you got right. Don't be discouraged. If you got some wrong, that's fine. This is part of the growing pains. So we are going to get better. Learning this test, figuring out things in this test is just like working out. It takes time to build. Just like the body needs time to build muscle, your brain needs time to build the knowledge to do well on this exam. And with that said, we have come to the end of this one. There's one last passage for test 1, which is passage 5, and that's our very next lesson. So I will see you there.